You're listening to Temple Talk from Jerusalem, Israel. Rabbi Chaim Richman here, together with Yitzchak Reuven. Today is Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, 5777, August 1st, 2017. Not only do we not have any music opening today's program, but I also didn't say shalom and welcome, because on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av, we have this very, very unique situation. We are all as mourners for the Holy Temple, and we do not greet each other. There are many things that we are prohibited in for much of the day, such as bathing, such as eating and drinking, all sorts of things that mark our conduct, that we are not to lose our focus today at all from the loss of the Holy Temple and the importance of the Holy Temple in our lives. And as in past years, today, Tisha B'Av, Yitzchak and I had the privilege of ascending the Temple Mount early this morning. We're going to be speaking about that. And then we came in to record this program to share our thoughts and reflections and experiences of Tisha B'Av with you. And that to us is the best way to spend some portion of the day, because the main point of today is that we should merit to get our act together to rebuild the Holy Temple. How is it going to happen exactly if we do not collectively realize that the time has come? So first of all, again, what is today all about? Everybody knows there are 5 national calamities that occurred on this day. The first one, historically, of course, is the report that was delivered this very day, today, as we speak, the 10 spies. It's around 1312 BCE I'm talking about. 10 spies returned to the camp of the Jews in the desert and spoke their libel, their lashon hara, against the land of Israel. And unfortunately, the people of Israel they received their evil speech, and it was decreed against them that they would not be entering into the land. In 586 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon destroyed the first temple. Jews were slaughtered, and millions more were exiled. I believe around 100,000 Jews were slaughtered. In 70 CE, the second temple was destroyed by the Romans on this very same day, led by Titus. Some figures reckon that 2 million Jews died and another 1 million were exiled. A little bit later on, in 135 CE, the Bar Kokhba revolt, which was the last holdout against Roman occupation. The Bar Kokhba revolt was crushed by the Roman Emperor Hadrian, and the city of Beitar, which was the last stronghold of the Bar Kokhba rebels, last stand against the Romans, it was captured and liquidated, and over 100,000 Jews were slaughtered. And then later, the temple area and its surroundings were plowed under by the Roman general Turnus Rufus. That was when Jerusalem was rebuilt as a pagan city and renamed Aelina Capitolina, and access was forbidden to Jews. Of course, later on in history, there were other misfortunes, if we could call them that. The Spanish Inquisition began on Tisha B'Av in 1492. I'm sorry, not the Spanish Inquisition began, but it culminated with the expulsion of Jews from Spain. That's what it was. In fact, I believe that was the day that Columbus set sail.
Absolutely set sail with many Jewish sailors on the boat who were escaping Spain. Thought they were going to India, I guess. They ended up in the New World.
World War I broke out on the eve of Tisha B'Av in 1914, when Germany declared war on Russia. And it was German resentment from the war that set the stage for the Holocaust, they say. And on the eve of Tisha B'Av in 1942, the gas chambers in Treblinka began operation. I believe 3,000 Jews were gassed on that first Tisha B'Av in Treblinka. Point being, it is a day that has been etched into consciousness and subconsciousness of the Jewish people from time memorial as a day of mourning. But I gotta tell you,
it was a day of mourning because we, the children of Israel, believed or bought the report, the evil report from the spies.
And so that's really where it all spirals out.
We
from.
mourned all night that we weren't going to go to the land of Israel. And God says, you want something to mourn about? I'll give you something to mourn about. So it's a day that started out as beautiful and pure and positive,
blue skies,
as any other day in time.
So
but
examining the historicity,
we gave it a bend that's lasted throughout the generations. We did it.
And everything really can be said to be a direct result of, as David says in Psalms, showing contempt for the precious land. It all spiraled out of control when the spies came back. Of course, the heart of everything, of what the land of Israel means, of what it's all about, is the Holy Temple, place of the Shekhinah. It's an equation. The temple standing in the land brings about a state of perfection for the whole world. And here we are, some 69 years into the reality of the state of Israel. And you know what? It's very, very hard to relate to these facts and to this day and to the tapestry of tragedy that has been woven through the lives of the people of Israel. It's hard to relate to it in the same way, because the fact is the stage is set for the rebuilding of the Holy Temple more than ever before, and things are changing in such a huge way. You know, look at the headlines that we're looking at here now on the internet from this morning. Yitzchak, look at the headlines of the Times of Israel.
And Israel says, hundreds of Jews visit Temple Mount to commemorate destroyed temples.
Look, this is the headline. The headline is hundreds of Jews visit Temple Mount to commemorate destroyed temples. So listen, I get there this morning, 6:10 a.m. Now the temple, the gate, the one gate that is accessible to Jews and other human beings, other non-Muslims, the one gate that is open for the Jews opens at 7:30 in the morning. And you know, like, there was so much trouble with the Temple Mount, with the magnetometers and not magnetometers and everything. Is it even going to be open this year? So I get there. I figure, okay, I'll leave early. I'll get there. I want to be in the head of the line. I want to get up there as soon as I can. I really wanted to be there. Meet up with a lot of people that we're going to meet. I get there at 6:10. There were hundreds of people already there, already waiting outside the gate. And we had a whole minyan, they read from the Torah, and everyone is waiting. And by the time we were ready to go up, there must have been 300-400 people behind me in line.
At least.
I don't know what the final count is going to be. I already heard that maybe 1,000 people already went up today. But the point is, this is so different than it ever was. When we first started ascending the Temple Mount 30 years ago, there were so few people that were going up, and those people were branded as being enemies of the state. You know, they were treated like total persona non grata. It was such a fight. It was such an effort to get people to acknowledge the importance of going up on the Temple Mount. There were so few people involved. Today, I think that there were so many people there that I don't even know who these people are. They're all ages. They're all coming from everywhere. It is a total spiritual revolution. It is something so amazing. I mean, we made up to be together, a certain group of people. We were going to ascend together, and we couldn't. We were separated because there were just droves and droves and droves of people that the police are trying to process that are coming to go up, and that sends such an unbelievable message. Look at this headline: hundreds of Jews visit the Temple Mount to commemorate destroyed temples. And you know what? It is so special to be there. Oh, it's always special to be there, but today the feeling was, well, this is just natural. This is, where else do you want to be? Where do you want to be today? What are you going to do? And, you know, to sit on the floor and to do all the mourning things, as I call it, and I will call it that way right now, and you can think what you want, but to do the mourning game and pretend that everything is terrible and God, please look at what we're going through and come back and redeem us and build a temple and all these kind of things, as if nothing's changed, as if we're still in exile, as if we're just waiting for God to do something. It's a false narrative, in my opinion. It's a false narrative because God is here. God gave us the Temple Mount on a silver platter. God says, as far as I'm concerned, go for it. So what are we going to do with that? That is the issue. And the feeling of all of these people going up on the Temple Mount today. Now, you know what? Let's see when the count is finished and to issue some sort of a remark about official remark from the police about how many people went up today. We'll see if it was a world record. We'll see if it beats even the amount of people that went up on Jerusalem Day. I don't know, but I know that you never saw a Tisha B'Av like today. When, excuse me, but listen carefully, I am sure that there were more people waiting to get in to the gate to go up to the Temple Mount this morning than there were people that were passing through to the Western Wall Plaza. I looked down from the ramp going into the Temple Mount. I looked down. Temple Mount was the Kotel Plaza was not full. It was just not with the same amount of people as in years past. But yet, all these people, especially youths, especially the beautiful young people of our generation, they're all lining up, tripping over each other just to get to go to the Temple Mount. And you know, one of the restrictions of Tisha B'Av, because we're all mourners, so mourners don't extend greetings to each other. You know, you're not supposed to say hello to someone. You see an old friend on Tisha B'Av, or you pass a neighbor, you're not supposed to say good morning. And if someone says something to you, because they're uninformed, so the Halaqa is you're supposed to respond a little bit feebly, weakly. You're not supposed to give a lot of vigor to your hello, because we don't greet each other on Tisha B'Av. Well, guess what? You just can't do that. You just can't do that when you go to the temple and you see all these people and you see people. Yeah, people, they tend to hug each other, to greet each other. You know why? Because it's a different thing. It's a different generation. It's a different level, because these people are not sitting on the floor and saying, God, please help us build a temple. They're building the temple. They're saying, we're going to build a temple. Just tell us when you're ready, and we're here right now. We're not waiting. It's a different thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a different attitude, and it is like, excuse me, but it's a type of joy. And that's what we've been saying all along. We've been badgering you for weeks now, during this period of the 3 weeks, that telling you that it's not about mourning for its own sake. It's not about being miserable. The mitzvah is not to be filled with dread and anxiety. The mitzvah is to be totally focused on the loss of the Holy Temple, and then to say, enough is enough. Another prohibition about today is you're not actually supposed to study Torah. Isn't that interesting? You're not supposed to wash, anoint yourself. You're not supposed to wear leather shoes. There are things that we do that a mourner, God forbid, for a close relative does, or refrains from during the seven days of Shiva, because we're mourning for the temple. So one of the things is you're not supposed to study Torah, because Torah gladdens the heart. So there's a short list of sections of the Torah that you're actually allowed to study on Tisha B'Av, because they have to do with mourning, or they have to do with the destruction of the temple. And most contemporary decisors of Jewish law, they stick with that list, and this is what you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av. And then, of course, there are people that are just breathlessly bored on Tisha B'Av, and they don't know what to do with themselves. So there's a whole new thing now that people, they read sad things, they study about the Holocaust and different things, as they think that's what Tisha B'Av is all about. So I got a question from a young person yesterday, asked me, are you allowed to study about the Beit HaMikdash? Are you allowed to study about the Holy Temple, laws of the Holy Temple, the Mishnayot, that talk about the plan of the temple and all the details in the temple service? I said, are you kidding? That's exactly what you should be doing. They said, where is it written? Could you prove it? Are you sure you're allowed to learn that? I said, don't you understand? The reason that you're not supposed to learn other parts of the Torah that so-called gladden the heart is because you're not supposed to be distracted from the main point of the day, which is, I can't live without the Holy Temple. I can't go on living without the Holy Temple. But to spend your time today studying about the Holy Temple, it doesn't get better than that. That's the whole point. Focus on every detail of the Holy Temple.
You mentioned the feeling of joy among the people that went up this morning. There definitely was a very, very, very strong feeling of joy and of camaraderie, of unity, of oneness, all these things which are necessary components of moving forward and building the Mikdash. And despite the absolute crush of people before we actually got onto the mount, because there were so many people, there was this just uplifting feeling. The police, I gotta hand it to them, there's been a complete revolution in the police mentality over the past year and a half. They greet you, they get rounds of applause from the people going up because they're the same crew that greet you each time, and they are polite and respectful and encouraging. And they said, listen, we want to get everybody up today. We want everybody who got here to get up. And once we got up, I think to everybody's surprise, there was practically no Muslims up there. The Waqf presence, which usually is in your face, and especially days like Tisha B'Av, oftentimes there are concerted efforts in advance by the Muslims to create some kind of disruption that will encourage the police to close it down. It didn't happen. There wasn't a hint of that. And this is after the whole debacle of the metal detectors, etc., which we felt was handled very, very poorly by the Israeli government. Despite that, the one or two Waqf people were kept at a distance by the police. And you almost could, when you would see them in the distance, you could almost sense their distress. In fact, at one point we were walking, and there were a couple of Waqf people sitting down a little bit away from us, and as we walked by, one said to the other, "Chas Halila, atem lo mitpalalim kan," which is like, God forbid you don't pray here. Like, he's distressed, he's upset by seeing the hundreds of Jews.
I didn't know what to expect, because that whole deal with the magnetometers, like you said, we were so upset about the way the Prime Minister handled it, and we felt it was an embarrassment. We felt it was a capitulation.
It was an invitation for more provocations.
And I was sure that when we would go up today, they would be gloating, and they would be like in our faces completely, and with their whole torturous thing of like dogging every step and looking at your lips and making you feel like, subhuman. And you know what? They were distanced. They were distanced by the police. So I don't know what's going on, what the deal was, but it was a lot more tolerable and pleasant for that reason. The police really did try to cooperate. No open prayer as usual, and those who did, I just read of 9 people that were arrested, escorted off the mountain. I did see with my own eyes one young fellow who tried to bow down, and the police were all over him and took him out. The point is, you can't stop what's going on, and the police know it too. We couldn't bow down. We couldn't pray with our lips today. First of all, by the way, before I forget, I just want to assure those people that whom I promised that they would be at the forefront of my prayers today on the Temple Mount. They know who they are. I kept my word, and had a lot of prayer, at least in my heart, and a little bit coming out of my lips also for those that I promised I would remember there. But the fact is, again, like Yitzchak and I thought that we would meet, and there were some other people, friends that Yitzchak brought from his town, and then there was a bus that came from another town that I promised I was going to give some people a guided tour, and that we would be together. And all these people, like, they're just everywhere with hundreds of people in between us. They were flailing their hands and we're trying to like meet. It was impossible. It was a sea of humanity, and it was just whoever got there first was able to get in. And it's because there is a total spiritual upheaval, revolution going on that can't be stopped. It's been building up for decades, and now it's here. It's here, and everybody knows it. The press knows it. The police knows it, and it is irrevocable. So I look online now, and I see on this same site where we have a headline saying hundreds of Jews visit the Temple Mount to commemorate destroyed temples. I see there's an interview with the famed Israeli leftist author A.B. Yehoshua, who is a secular Zionist with his own ideas about life, and he was awarded the prestigious Israel Prize. And he goes and he says in this article, you know what? the real destruction of Tisha B'Av, the real reason for mourning, is not because of the temple, but because half of the Jewish people in the world don't live in the land of Israel. And that's what we should be mourning for, not a building. And it's a shame that half the Jewish people in the world don't understand that they have a motherland and they should be here. And in that article he says, yeah, give the Temple Mount to the Muslims. You have the Western Wall. They have a beautiful mosque there. It was erected 1,300 years ago. Let them have it. Like, what do you want? Well, actually, parts of his interview, I actually applaud the fact that he says that the Jews all need to be in the land of Israel. I'm really glad that he said that. That's absolutely true. But on the other hand, Yitzchak, I believe, off mic, actually called him an idiot.
I called him an idiot because and I don't think he is ignorant. I think
ignorant is what it is.
Yeah, I don't think he's really ignorant. In his interview, he spoke as if he didn't understand what we had to do with the Temple Mount. What Jews had to do with the Temple Mount. He was basically faulting the religious people that want to go to the Temple Mount and saying, "What are you mourning a building for? You have the Kotel.
Yeah, you have the Kotel, and let them have the Temple Mount.
He said, "You want Muslims praying at the Kotel? What do you want to pray up there? It's their mosque there."
Right, but the point is, and I see that the man finally later in life has developed a sensitivity to the Jewish people, at least, which I don't think he always displayed. But the point is, why do I call him ignorant? Because he is displaying a total lack of understanding of what the point of having a motherland is. So he's critical, and rightly so, of half the Jewish people who don't live here. But what about the destiny of the Jewish people? What about their identity? What about their purpose in life? That's what the temple is all about. We're not talking about a building. We don't care about a building. Like, how many times do I have to say it? This isn't about architecture. This is not an obsession about the building. This is about the Hashem, who commanded reverence for his name to rest in that place. It's about the fact that not every place is the same. It's about a place being sacred. And yes, the entire land of Israel is sacred, and we should all come home. But the heart, the enigma, the soul, pulsing, beating, everything that makes it what it is what today is all about. It's about the Holy Temple. And what I saw today on the Temple Mount was that we are moving towards a trend now of rebuilding. It's a spiritual revolution, and everybody who was there today knew it. And so that's what Tisha B'Av looks to us today. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Temple Talk.
We are back. Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Reuven with Rabbi Chaim Richman. Today is Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, 5777, 1st of August 2017. Again, no music and no greeting today because it is Tisha B'Av and we don't greet one another today. One of the aspects of being in a state of mourning. And today we're in a state of mourning, I would say, not so much for the Holy Temple, which was destroyed 1,947 years ago, but more for where we're at now, or where we're not at now, which is in a state of complete and total preparation to be rebuilding, although, as we've been reporting, we seem to be moving in that direction, and that is giving us a tremendous amount of reason for joy. Yes, even on this Tisha B'Av, we're discussing that earlier. Rabbi, you mentioned, we were talking about Aleph Beit Yoshua, the author, and you said, again, like you've said many times in the past, it's not about a building. It's about consciousness. It's about our identity. And I would add to it's not about a building. I would also say it's not a religious issue. It's not about the religion of Judaism. It's about the identity of the people of Israel. It's about our connection as individuals and as a nation, and ultimately for all the nations to connect with our Creator. It's much, much bigger than a religious edict. It's much, much bigger than a religious article of faith, even though obviously all those articles of faith apply to it. The Holy Temple is basically, it's a vehicle for taking this place that God chose, from which the universe extruded into our consciousness, and God says, build for there an amplifier that my presence may be amplified into all the world. That God's presence, it's there, it is holy, and that's the source of its holiness. The Holy Temple and the service that takes place in the Holy Temple are all aspects of the broadcast of that presence, of God's presence to all of the world.
It's a worldview. A worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, you know, I don't even like to use the word religion or religious, because it conjures up a feeling of something that is man-made, that is, you know, ritualistic, and this is so much more than that. The temple isn't about, like you say, religion or being religious. It's about whether or not you believe in God, and believe it or not, somehow that doesn't fit in with this idea of religion, because once you know that there's a God in the world, that's all there is. So and as soon as you start talking religion, you're like relegating something to a certain time of day, a certain practice, a certain time of year. That's not what this is all about. It's who we are. It's why we're here. And the more arrogant, the more condescending, the more elitist a person is, we find, the less they have room for God in their agenda and then in their plan. And so I was thinking about one of the more famous expressions that we deal with many times from our sages of blessed memory who taught us. One of the expressions that comes up a lot when we talk about the Holy Temple is the expression the sages taught that every generation in which the Holy Temple is not rebuilt, every generation that does not succeed in rebuilding it, is reckoned as if it is the generation in which it was destroyed. Well, I don't think that applies to us anymore. I don't think that we are the generation in which it was destroyed. I think we are the generation which is trying to rebuild it. I think that when we look at the people that were braving the terrible, terrible heat wave, and they were braving the human crush of wanting to be seen by God in this place today, that they're spending their day, no coffee, no caffeine, no fat, no water, no comforts. It's a fast day. It's like a terribly hot day, and they came here and they know that this is the place where they have to be, not in the comfort of their air-conditioned home. They must be on the Temple Mount. This is the generation that's trying to rebuild the Holy Temple, and pardon me for saying it, but I think one of the deals with a person like Aleph Bet Yehoshua, who is extremely full of himself, is that he doesn't have room for the God agenda, because it's too much personal responsibility and it's too much meaning, and you know what? When he criticizes the religious people for wanting to go to the Temple Mount and saying, "Oh, why don't you just go to the Western Wall and leave the Muslims to the Temple Mount?" I think that what it really is that he is threatened. He is threatened by the fact that there is a tangible, palpable, irrevocable spiritual revolution that's going on here, and it's coming from the bottom up, and most importantly, it is the banner of the young generation. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You know, it's, what is that? No country for old men. Move over.
Yeah.
Move over. If you can't get with the program, I guess it's time for you to step aside.
Yeah, get out of the new road if you can't lend a hand.
Because this is what's going on now. This is who these people are. This is who these kids are. This is who the face of leadership is, and the media is acknowledging it. The police are acknowledging it. The Knesset are acknowledging it.
The world at large is acknowledging it.
Yes. And so Jordan and everybody that has a stake in this, in continuing the sham, like the whole deal with like Balak and Bilam. Like Balak said, oh, they're gonna lick us up like grass, like Balak licks up the grass, and we know what that means. There's not going to be room for our prestidigitation anymore, right? And Jordan especially, that he just boils my blood, that boy king, and he was on Star Trek, of course. But now, he's saying like, oh, we stopped them. I stopped
the Judaization.
I stopped them from Judaizing
Jerusalem.
Like, what is Jerusalem? It's part of your little myopic upstart kingdom. So anyway, the point is, he's threatened too. he knows very, very well that what's going on here is a process, and we're in the throes of that process right now. And Tisha B'Av is not the same as it was when we were going up in smoke in Europe. It's not the same as it was in the medieval days and in the days of the Crusaders. It's not the same it was in the days of the Romans. Tisha B'Av now in Medinat Israel, in the state of Israel, after 69 years, is like it's cracking. The shell is cracking, and the chick is about to come out cheeping, and you can't stop it. It's not. You wanna pretend that we're still in the same level of mourning and act as if like if you keep crying a river, like God will have mercy on you and drop the temple down on your head like Turkey Lurkey or Henny Penny. I don't know. You can do that if you want, but that's not the scenario here anymore. This is a scenario of a generation that got up early, that's on their feet, that wants to be seen on the Temple Mount, that's saying, this is ours, we're home, where do you think we're going to be today? Where do you think I want to be today? So what if it's hot? So what if I'm thirsty? This is where I have to be today, because this is who we are. This is who we are. And that's what it means to have a motherland, A.B. Yoshua. That's what it means to want the Jewish people to come home to their land. It's all about building the temple. Not because we're religious, not because it's a religion, it's because we're Jews. It's because there's Torah. That is our way. That is our constitution. And because we're the people of God, and He chose us to do this. So don't minimize it or ridicule it by calling it religion. It's not about being religious at all. It's about who we are as a people.
In this week's parsha, V'etchanan, which we always read on the Shabbat following Tisha B'Av, Moshe Rabbeinu, talking again to the children of Israel, he says, and I pleaded to God that He let me into the land. And in fact, our tradition says that he expressed 515 different tefillot, different bakashot, different requests, different beseechments of God until finally God, as Moshe says, said enough, stop. Do you realize that Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest leader of the Jewish people, the greatest of the prophets, the man who brought us out of Egypt, the man who brought us to Mount Sinai, the man who enabled the giving of the Ten Commandments, etc., 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 never had the privilege of entering the land of Israel. And here we are today, mites like you and me, nothing, and we're here. And it behooves us on Moshe's behalf, if for no other reason, to, yes, go up to the Temple Mount and demand that we can be free in the Temple Mount and that we build the Holy Temple, because that's why Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go in. That's why he pleaded with God incessantly till God finally said, enough already. It's like, do it for the Gipper, but I'm saying that this is Moshe Rabbeinu, and this is exactly precisely what you're saying expresses in this week's parsha.
We can't do too much of the parsha now because there is a prohibition against Torah study today.
I'm trying to find a loophole.
A little teaser. I'll give you a little teaser. The fact is, you said a huge thing here. No, this is only about the temple consciousness. As you said a huge thing, and actually, God willing, in our video this week, please tune in. We're going to explore this in much greater depth. But the fact is, I'll just say this, that what did Moshe ask for? He asked to be able to see Hahar Hatov Hazeh V'Halavanon. That's the verse from his prayer from V'etchanan, when I beseeched Hashem at that time, saying, he asked to see this goodly mountain and the Lebanon. And our sages say this goodly mountain is Jerusalem, and the Lebanon is the Holy Temple. The word Lebanon in the Torah, as we find many times in the Song of Songs, is an allusion to the Holy Temple because it whitens sin. It is a whitening agent. So that's what he was asking for.
And we were there this morning.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy. What is this? Like, he's asking for one thing.
Moshe's emissary.
After a lifetime of self-nullification and self-sacrifice for the Jewish people, he has one thing he's asking to be able to do, and that's come into the land of Israel and see the Beit HaMikdash. And here we are, just standing online and going through the magnetometer and going up through the gate and walking around the Temple Mount. Wow, What does that even mean? And every Shabbat Nachamu, the Sabbath of consolation, which is called so because we read the verse in the Haftarah, be consoled, my people. We always read this Torah portion, and it opens with Moshe asking to see the Holy Temple.
So it's pretty big, and we're part of it. And it's a huge privilege and responsibility to be part of it.
Tell you what I really want to talk about this week in the Parsha video, and I'm only mentioning it because you brought this up, and it means a lot to me. The question is, what happened to a prayer that's unanswered?
Wow.
It's a deep thing. We all wonder this. We all have prayers that we feel we don't get answered, right? So does that just go off somewhere into the maw, M-E-W, of the universe?
Into the
is it wasted?
Universe's bureaucracy.
He prayed 515
shoebox
prayers.
somewhere.
Right, where are they? Where are they?
In some other dimension.
500 in holographic universe. 515 prayers. They did not get answered. What I want to study this week when we do our Parsha is, where did Moshe Rabbeinu's prayers go? Can I tell you? I think I saw them come alive on the Temple Mount today.
Whoa.
But that's about that.
Where did all the prayers go? Rabbi.
I think it's very, very big blessing that we're able to be here on Tisha B'Av, the day of mourning, of teshuvah, of introspection, of wanting to rebuild the temple, that we're here, we're sharing all of this with our precious listeners today, whether they're listening to it today on Tisha B'Av or they're listening to it later in the week. Don't forget, this is a very, very unusual week, because we're going to be going through what Psalms 30, the inauguration for the Holy Temple Psalm, what it refers to as, you have transformed my lament into dance. You have ungirded my sackcloth and girded me with joy, because we're going to be moving from the 9th of Av to the 15th of Av, which is going to be observed this Sunday night, Monday, which is a very happy occasion. So if you're listening to this a little bit later, try to put it all in perspective and understand the time for the rebuilding the Holy Temple is at hand. And, you know, what we're really trying to do amongst all the things that we're trying to do for so many years here at the Temple Institute, we're trying to facilitate a paradigm shift of consciousness. We're trying to ignite a number of different fronts of revolution. Now, I must say, it's paying off, obviously. Something is happening, and we do know what it is, because we saw all of those people, and we were part of that throng, that pulsating body of Israel on the Temple Mount, and that's because the new generation understands that this is where they belong. The new generation understands that this is home. The new generation understands that whoever is in control of the Temple Mount is in control of the destiny of the Jewish people. And the new generation understands that we must build the Holy Temple. But there's a lot of Jews in exile. A lot of Jews in exile. And what we want is, we want them to begin at least just by thinking about this differently, by getting a different perspective, by starting to realize it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to be mourning forever. We could actually rebuild. We're commanded to rebuild, slowly, slowly, to facilitate this type of change in thought, because nothing is going to happen until the Jewish people begin to think differently, to realize that there are different possibilities, that Hashem is waiting on us. Towards that end, 5 years ago, we began an ambitious project that has become an annual event, and that is producing a very, very short video clip for Tisha B'Av, which we hope will, what they call, go viral, so that it will be shared and experienced by many people. Just something a little visceral, a little bit of a knock on the head, to see things in a completely different way. So we've been doing this for some years now. Some of our messages have been more subtle than others, some less subtle, but it's all about a different perspective. So the first one, I think it was back in 2012,
It was 5 years ago, 2013 maybe, 13,
First
14,
one,
15, 16, 17, yeah, 2013.
the first one was called The Children Are Ready, and it featured two children who went to the beach for the day with their father, and the shock that the father experienced when he saw, because he had been totally self-absorbed in his adult world, newspaper, shocked to see what his children occupied themselves with during the day on the beach. That was the first one. Second one was also called The Children Are Ready, and that was a synagogue scene. It was where children decided that they had enough of seeing their adult parents mourn for the Holy Temple. They got into their heads that they were ready to rebuild the temple, and so they came into the synagogue all ready to rebuild it and took their parents out. That was that one. The third one was
about an elderly man studying about the Mikdash,
right, elderly
about the
man
Holy
sitting in the
Temple
park
from the Talmud,
studying the section of the Talmud that talks about how the temple, maybe it's going to come down from heaven. Nobody knows exactly. Actually, the Talmud doesn't say that. The commentaries say that. But anyway, and then all of a sudden, a bunch of kids from all different types, all different cross-section, even some Arab children, they all got excited because they see something off in the distance from the Haas Promenade where they're standing, and they look over to the Temple Mount, and they see the temple is being rebuilt.
By man.
And then the next one was a beautiful composite of the Jewish wedding ceremony over the centuries, and how at the end of every wedding ceremony a glass is broken underfoot by the groom, under the chuppah, under the wedding canopy, to symbolize that the joy of the most beautiful, important, and happy occasion in a person's life, getting married, isn't complete because the temple was destroyed. But how many glasses have to be broken? Instead of breaking all these glasses, why don't we just build the temple? And this year's video, last year was called "A Time to Rebuild." This year's is called
Wake Up. Time to Wake Up.
Time to Wake Up. It's also a Children Are Ready subsidiary spin-off. And it involves the dream of a sweet little boy who sees that it doesn't, Tisha B'Av doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it was, I felt like I was in that dream this morning.
Today,
going up on the temple.
His dream basically takes him to a world where it looks very, very familiar, and it's Tisha B'Av, but it's a different kind of Tisha B'Av altogether. It turned into a celebration. That's this year's. And I must say that in the past 24 hours, thanks maybe to some of you, our listeners, this year's video, Time to Wake Up, which is available on the Temple Institute's YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Temple Institute, Time to Wake Up, Tisha B'Av, something like that. It has gone up over the past 24 hours by at least 10,000 views. Maybe by the time you hear this, it'll be climbing even higher. And again, the goal that we have in producing these educational materials is to get our brethren to start thinking differently about.
So maybe if someone hasn't already started thinking differently, if they'll see this video and then they'll read the headlines about what's happening in Jerusalem this morning in the Temple Mount, maybe they'll say, wait a minute, something's happening and I'm missing it. I want to be part of this. I want to learn more about it. I want to get involved.
Because we don't have to be mourning forever. Tisha B'Av is promised to us by the prophet Zechariah to be a time that's going to be transformed into joy. I think we're starting to see the beginning of that, is what I'm trying to say through all this. I think that there's no denying that when so many people make the choice of, instead of endless mourning and weeping, that they voted with their feet and they went to the Temple Mount and they are just so, pardon me, happy. Yes, you're allowed to be happy on Tisha B'Av if it's about the Holy Temple. They're just so happy to be there. They're so privileged to be there. They're so convicted, and they're so focused on change. That is a sure sign that we are in a completely different time. It's a completely different epoch, and it's healthy. it's straight, it's a healthy mindset, and it's a very good bill of health for the people of Israel on Tisha B'Av. I'm glad I don't have to be negative on Tisha B'Av. I'm glad I see that things are changing before our very eyes.
It's very healthy because it means that the people aren't just thinking about and working on planning about the future, but they're accepting and appreciating and embracing the great distance this nation has come as a nation in the past 50 years, that we are here now in our homeland, here in Jerusalem. And guess what? There's just one aspect of the exile that still exists, and that's on the Temple Mount, and that's exactly what we are working to eradicate and rebuild and reinstitute God's house on the Temple Mount.
Time to wake up.
Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.